So that's why you have to make those rules, right? See if I can get adjusted over here. Well, I'd like to thank you all for taking time out of your evening. I know everybody's schedules are very busy, but something that's very important to ADCO. My name is Laura, and I'm with ADCO. We're a full-service marketing and advertising agency here in Columbia. And we are working with a client on a rebranding effort. And so we're here today to talk about that a little bit. So I've got a little script here, so you're going to see me looking down and make sure that I give you all the information that you need. So we're here today to talk about Richland County Public Library, which is why you answered all the questions about the library card. For this discussion, we'll be talking about their logo specifically. The library is how they serve their customer is very important to them, and they conduct a lot of surveys throughout the year about the library's services. But today, we're going to stick to the logo, so I'll ask you to confine your comments to the logo. I don't want to get misdirected with services of the library. The logo is important. It's important to every organization because the logo should say something about you. Who you are and what you do. It's the face that you put on everything, and it needs to appeal to the community. This is the current logo for the library. As you see the library, the logo that it has today, do you recognize it? Has everybody seen this logo? Are you familiar with my RCPL or RCPL? That's used in the library? Is that a phrase that you use when you talk about the library, Bill? How do you usually refer to the library when you talk about it?
RCPL.
RCPL?
Usually say the whole name, which we
You usually say the whole name?
Main Street Library.
Main Street Library, you refer to your branch?
Richland County Library, or just most of the time, the library.
Yeah, usually it's just the library.
The library? Okay. Because the library is evolving, as you can imagine, technology has changed everything for everyone, and particularly the library. Their brand face and how they serve the community needs to change as well. So I'm going to show you this next logo kind of cold. I'm not going to tell you anything about what the library is trying to accomplish or the face that they're trying to put out there, because I want your immediate and frank reaction to this mark as I show it to you. Tell me what you see in this mark, and by the mark I mean that icon that's above the library name.
Looks like a caption balloon to me.
Looks like a caption balloon.
I'm not sure what it is. I was thinking more of a computer.
A computer?
Yeah.
Here's the instant message bubble.
I'm sorry, what was that?
The instant message bubble. in your
The
IM
instant
system.
message bubble? Mm-hmm.
I thought computer, but that's because of the word.
A computer? That's because of what?
Because it said access freely.
Because it
I think
said
that made
access
it.
freely? Mm-hmm. What do you think of that tagline? What does that tagline say to you? Does it help define that mark a little bit better?
It kind of made me think that they were trying to do something like more online availability, something to do with computers or a website or something.
Kind of looks like the Ask Chuck thing from Charles Schwab has the
Mhm.
same kind of, it's that same kind of
It does have a
quote,
very
Ask
specific
Chuck.
top balloon, yes.
Yeah. I was seeing a double meaning between using computers and also using the library for free.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anything else? Anybody see in that mark? What about the name, Richland Library? When you hear that, do you think still of the public library in your community?
Yeah. I think because that brand is already out there, so it's like a shortening of a name,
Mhm.
so I think so.
The only thing that I quasi think is I rarely hear Richland without county,
Mm-hmm.
so that's a little
it confuse you when you hear Richland Library?
No.
Would you know what that means?
Yeah.
I think I know now that I live here.
Now that you live here?
I think if I was moving in.
As a citizen of the city and the county, I like it better
Mm-hmm.
than county. Because it doesn't emphasize.
I think it might, like she was saying, I think it might be confusing for new people moving in.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what I was thinking was if I did a Google search tonight and that's what popped up, I would think, oh, well, there must be another Richland Library somewhere else, and I would move on to
So you need to be educated a little bit.
that. There's a shift in.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I wonder if access is a word that all of our citizens would relate to.
Mm-hmm.
I understand it. I'm teaching a 50-year-old to read.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that he would pick that up.
It's a little highbrow maybe?
It's literary,
Literary.
or at least computerish.
Mm-hmm. It's both.
Yeah.
Okay. As I mentioned, technology is changing everybody and everything. Not so long ago, if you wanted a book, there was one place to get it, and that was the library. When that book was popular, your name went on the waiting list, and they called you when it was available, and that's how you got your books. But today, it's different, and the consumer has more choices. So now more than ever, libraries are working to become more interactive. And I don't just mean online. They're working to offer services and programs that are more face-to-face, and also offer those tools and resources online to meet that demand. So they're pulling double duty now. They're IT people and they're librarians. Did you know that the library, for example, this library, Richland County Public Library, has more than 10,000 ebooks for you to check out. Almost 100,000 non-print materials, DVDs, music CDs, many of which are downloadable from your computer. You don't even have to go to the library to get them. Is everybody in this room aware of that? If you're a library user, did you have any idea? Who didn't know that?
And not the downloadable part.
Okay. They're also working to be more interactive face-to-face. They have a job resources program where they give you personal assistance in your job search. They can help you prepare your resume and give you those skills. They also have more than 2,500 programs a year in their main branch and their other branches on everything from plays, book clubs, children reading a book to dogs, programs for teens, everything. Did you know that they had that vast amount of offerings? So now that I've told you these facts, do you feel a little bit differently about this logo and what it might mean or say to you?
I think, the other logo was, I feel like a little bit friendlier, because it had trees, it's just a little softer. This one's more like Richland Library, like it's just very direct, and that may be the direction that you're going in, but that one's more, I don't wanna say like accessible, but it just is a little bit friendlier, and this one's more, it's more direct. I mean, which is fine, I'm just saying that it's a completely different feel.
It is a
than-
completely different
It
feel.
tells me more about the library.
Mhm.
The other one tells me nothing about the library except its name.
Mhm.
It's very artistic, but pretty, but trees and stuff don't tell me a thing about the library.
See the blue dot, I'm stuck on the blue.
Yeah,
I
is it
still
supposed to
don't
be a
know what
book?
it is.
Okay.
Is it supposed to be a book?
Well, it could be anything. It could be a book. It could be an e-reader. It's a conceptual icon. So it could be a laptop, an opening of a laptop, an opening of a book.
It doesn't look like,
communicate.
yeah, it doesn't look enough like anything to where it communicates anything to me except maybe that it's a caption bubble. You
And
know,
it
if
could be that as well.
Yeah,
As they're working to have more of those online conversations and personal conversations.
I think this logo made me feel like there's lots of things, like there's like open access, access freely, there's a lot of different ways to get stuff. The other logo, when I first moved here, I had no idea what that was for. I just saw the RCPL and I was like, I don't know what that is. There's the small Richland Library underneath,
Sure.
but this is like, oh, it's a library. Oh, you can get books. I guess you can get them online. Let me check their website out. That was my initial thought. So.
I like the access freely. I think it's very welcoming, kind of tells people that there's, it's free, which I would hope everybody would know, but maybe some people don't know that everything's free and that there's, I mean, I think it encourages people to show that you're more cutting edge and more high tech than the other way. It's definitely a more modern approach.
The words speak to me a whole lot more than the icon.
I agree. Me too. Yeah.
Okay.
I do like the library being big and bold.
As opposed to kind of downplayed as it was before.
Now, is it only accessible to Richland County residents? Is that one?
That's
Issue.
correct.
Okay.
The public library system in the state, they have county libraries. Now, you can pay to access. You can
Okay.
have an annual membership, and that's
Mhm.
how most of the libraries in the state work. I've told you about the changing technology and some of the services that the library offers. Well, as they move forward in trying to look like a library of today and not a library of yesterday, they're working to redefine how they want to serve the community. And they want to be welcoming, they want to be seen as caring about the community and the patrons of the library. They want to be seen as offering the best and look for ways to grow and share information, and that's what a lot of it is about today, is information. They want to be helpful, fresh, and fun, and they want to offer access to information, technology, and resources and make people understand what they have. Now that I've expanded on that a little bit, do you feel like this logo is representative of what I have just described to you? If so, how does it meet that? If not, how does it fall short to you?
I don't think the logo necessarily indicates that, but the access freely tagline is a nice addition.
I like the access freely more, the more description I'm hearing, it's like, oh, okay, that does make sense. But the icon I'm still kind of thrown off by.
It's a little bit confusing to you.
And I guess the other thing that I think about with the old icon, but I've lived here for many years, is when I see palmetto trees or trees, that and that tree in the middle makes me think of the Maurice Sendak stuff that's in the
Oh, I see.
basement. So
Mhm.
that to me is very iconic of,
The library.
and the main branch too. I mean, like that's what that makes me think of. But anytime I see like palmetto trees or things like that, it's like, oh, well, it's local. It's for Columbia. And so that's why I think the icon, it just seems a little cold to me in a way.
Feels a little cold. Okay.
Yeah, it's not fun, like you said, they were trying to be more fun, like that to me isn't fun. Like the font is very serious, at least for the Richland Library part.
Now I'm going to show you some variations on the theme and ask you, which is modifications of this, the name really, a different font, some typography, to see how you feel about that. If it changes your perception of how you see that mark a little bit. Do the difference? Do you see what's changed? Did those lowercase letters open it up for you a bit? Did it make any difference? Does it still feel a little cold?
Now it feels busier.
Yeah.
Feels busier?
There's something about it, it's hard to, after look at the other one.
It does, it helps a little because the library really jumps out first. It draws your eyes to the word library, and then you can pick up the rest. I like that.
Anybody else?
Seems bolder. I mean, like, library, yeah, it's original library, I mean. I like that one better than.
What about this?
That one's definitely friendlier than the first one.
Definitely friendlier. Does this change the mark for you in any way?
You mean the blue?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I still haven't. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's the bottom part being on the left, if it's meant to be instead of on the right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Do you think
It also
it's,
looks like a pencil, sort of.
do you think it's a little too artistic? Maybe not more literal to the shape of a book or a Nook or an iPad?
I think it's trying to be too many things.
Yeah.
It needs to be more defined as to what it actually is. And to me, it's a square and a triangle. It's not a book, it's not a laptop. I mean, I understand you saying it could be all those things, but it's none of those things to me, because it's not defined enough.
Yeah, it would almost be better just to not have the icon at all and just have the
Yeah.
4 words.
Or just to make it a book or a laptop or whatever you're trying to make it.
I think if the consumer is supposed to see that icon and go, oh, it's a blank, then they miss the mark. But if we're supposed to look at it and go, it's kind of this thing, it's just the logo and it's ambiguous, then that's okay. But if we're supposed to understand what it's supposed to be, then I think that's where the.
Yeah, it reminds me of the Nationwide Insurance Company blank, which is supposed to be a picture frame where your picture goes in it and nobody gets it. I think also the second one, as opposed to the third one,
This one?
feels, I don't know why, but it feels better.
That one? Well, a lot of logo, that's what it's about. It's about that connecting with you on that emotional or gut level. It's just what appeals to you more.
I like the third font better.
I like that font, but I don't like that library doesn't stand out as much.
Library doesn't stand out as
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, if we had that font with all caps, maybe.
The library part.
I don't like that font with the Access Freely font. Even I know it just doesn't
It feels like it's
match.
competing a little bit. One is friendly and welcoming and the other's a little,
But I mean, I like them independently, I just don't like them together. Visually, I don't like them together.
That's a much friendlier font.
the Richland
Looks-
Library.
But I agree with what everybody else was saying about the logo. It doesn't, if you're trying to say everything, be everything to everybody, you're not communicating anything to anybody. I mean, it's just, no one knows what it is. It's just, I don't know, it just doesn't look complete or.
I think I like that font if the library was in all caps, maybe. I don't know if you have that version. Compare.
So this is, everybody likes this font, but they like the library, really like library, big and bold.
I actually, go back to the first one.
Uh-huh.
I like that font in the sense that it looks a little more like a more modern organization. You know, I don't really know what their overall goal is, but that looks a little bit more modern to me, the font itself, but it's also spaced better. All the kerning on it is better, and the alignment of the way that it flows is better to me than the other three, even though I may like the other fonts. So,
It's clean.
Yeah, I think
Both-
that
both
one's also
those two
wider.
are clean.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
yeah,
The
that's,
clean, smooth, clipped edges.
They feel clean.
and sorry,
It's a
I
male,
said
female
kerning,
thing.
but yeah, the
Leading.
widening of the way that the letters are spaced
Right.
between each other. Because if I'm not mistaken, the access freely is the same width on all three. So as you change the font, it just gets to where it's kind of smushed more together.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it just goes more of a horizontal feel versus.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Those do come together a little bit.
I guess the third one sort of makes me feel like that's the font they use in books. Maybe I'm making that
Yeah, it's
up.
like a typewriter.
Yeah.
Mhm. And you like that or you don't like that?
No,
about
I
it?
like that font.
I think it gives it a literary connection.
Mhm. Does that font fit with those words? Access freely. One is more traditional. Access freely is less of a traditional statement.
That might be what I don't know, I don't, the visual of Richland Library with that font, with access freely with that font isn't working for me.
Well, another thing too is, the capitalization is kind of all over the place on all of these, because all of them has access freely, all lowercase with a period at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, none of that changes for all three logos. So to me, that just, it's kind of mixing it up too much. It's good because it offsets the tagline, but I would think that the tagline should have been modified, at least in size or alignment, for the subsequent two logos.
I don't know if other people would pick up on it, since we were talking about it, but you said the Richland Library looks like it would be the text in a book or a typewriter, and the access really very much makes me think like there's a website or a computer component to it, so
Mhm.
that's what the library is, and I think that, as we've been talking about, I think that's actually really cool, is that
Yeah, to tie
it
it
says
together.
Richland Library, and there's still books there, but you can go
Right.
online and do all that stuff too.
Yeah, it's
so-
neat to have the fonts contrast,
Yeah.
but I don't know whether that access freely is like, hey, this is the modern component of that logo.
Mhm. What other comments about these three logos? I want to talk for a minute about the blue and the different shades of blue. I mean, there's so many. And here, we're showing you kind of a medium shade. It's coming out a little light on the screen, but I did bring some boards here. But I do want to pass around, but I do want to show a little bit of a darker version. Did that translate to the screen very well? That's a little bit lighter.
Is there a
it's little bit
gradient, or is it
darker.
all in color?
It is a gradient, yes it is. It's showing a little bit of movement through that gradient. And then we have the medium blue. Oh. Yeah, this is the medium, and that's the lighter, and then we move to a much darker.
I think that middle one does look exactly like it. Would you say nation?
The blue, it could very well be a nationwide blue. It's a,
I don't like that light color blue.
you don't like the light color blue?
It
that's
made,
moving?
it made me think it was a little more amateur for some reason, based on nothing.
Just pass around some boards so you can hold it in your hand. Now, this is the original logo. I don't have boards, or we just have them all over the place, but we've got a light and a medium and a dark here. And so I'd kind of like to get your feedback on shades of blue. The first one coming around is a light shade, and the gradient is a little bit emphasized there because of the printer.
I don't know how well it's really gonna, like if you do the gradient, how well it's gonna translate, like if people are even gonna pick up on it. I mean, especially, you know, if it's real small,
It is very subtle.
or, you know what I
yes.
mean? And
Mhm.
so I don't know if it needs to be.
And the access freely blue changes along with the
That's
shade.
correct, on these, it did change, yes.
A weird sort of thing occurred to me. Logos fade in the sun. If you're gonna put a logo anywhere other than on a sheet of paper to be used inside, I would not go with the very light one.
Kind of a practical recommendation
Just
there.
as a practical matter, I think it would tend to fade out.
On the darkest one, I almost, all of a sudden, for some reason, it becomes less of a square and a triangle. Like, all of a sudden, I see a possibility of a book or like a nook or something. Like, I don't know if it's just the contrast with the white and the
It's like the color that
dark.
my laptop goes when it goes to, when it fades out. You know what I mean? Like when I haven't turned it off, but it's going black. I think that makes me like it, I'm not sure why.
Did the color change the logo for anyone else? Any of these colors?
I definitely like the darker a lot better.
Yeah, I like the darkest one.
Yeah, I guess if the question is which shade blue, then it's one of the medium or dark. If you're wanna talk about the library being a nice, cool, easy place to be, that's great. If you wanna emphasize the fun, it doesn't.
I'm also just kind of going back to the whole wording of it. I don't know if you still do maybe need to have the word county in there. I don't know, I'm just looking at saying like, was it Richmond, Virginia, Richland, oh, it's Richmond, but like Richland, some other place, you know what I mean, where they're like, oh, what's that?
It's like it's named.
I mean, everyone
after
knows you're, hopefully if you live here, know you live in Richland County, I hope that.
Does that make a difference that it's a community library? Is that, the more you think about it, that's what happens when you create something, is the more you look at it, the more you see, the more you think about it. And specifically, since we're here to analyze this and what it says, the more you think about it, talk about it, is anyone?
Foolish consistency being the hobgoblin with little minds, I now like county.
I wonder if that's something they could potentially, if they really want that as the end goal, to phase it out, but start with the word county in there and kind of.
You definitely don't need county and public.
Is there any rebranding efforts going on like with Lexington that's corresponding with it, or?
I do not know. Don't know. Does it make any difference that Richland School Districts 1 and 2 do not have the word county? Does that make a difference to you, now that you know that?
Because
I
to
think
me,
it's-
everybody,
Go ahead.
to me, everybody always refers to Richmond School District 1 as Richmond 1. I mean, I have 3 kids, and once you get to where you have kids and they're in school, it's always just referred to as Richmond 1. And what everybody else refers to it as is what it kind of gets implanted in your mind with me. So,
Maybe we're just so used to the word county being there with the
Yeah.
library that.
I had a quick thought, I apologize for coming late. I like the logo, it was very polished, but I thought if I put my finger over library and it was Richland and I wasn't used to, or I am used to Richland County, that could be steel or brick, it's very corporate. Michelle probably already touched on it. So, while it's very polished, I think maybe that if you had county in there, that would reassure, I would feel more like the library. I don't know, it's not even a quick thought.
You know, it was a place and not like a person or a company.
Yeah, or just, I mean, if I drove past and saw it and didn't, you know.
maybe Richmond Law Firm.
Yeah, anything, Richland, you know, word with all that together. I mean, again, it's a beautiful arrangement.
My thought was knowing that it is Richland County and knowing that it's the Richland County Library, it makes it a little less formal. it's the Richland Library. Like, we don't have to say the whole thing because everyone knows, and we're a neighborhood and we're a community and we all know what we mean. But as somebody from the outside coming in, like just moving in, I could see how they could be like, I don't really, is that name it for someone or is it a company?
I think if you want it to always have the air of inclusiveness though, you may wanna have the word county in there cause although we all may refer to our own libraries as the Forest Acres branch or Partnership, whatever it is that you go to, I mean, if you're always trying to have the air of inclusiveness, having the word county in there just constantly reinforces the fact that it's a public institution, and not just named Richland for whatever reason.
I just thought of something weird about it, and it's not whether it's better or worse. But if you change the logo only to Richland to be Richland Library, then the directory, whether it is, whether it's paper or whether it's online, needs to reflect that change.
Oh, certainly.
And I'm not, you don't want Richland Library on the ads and Richland County Library in the directories.
So you're saying make sure that that's a system-wide change
That's-
and that
It would
if you're
need
gonna
to
adopt
be
the
a
name, then it needs to be everywhere.
System-wide change.
I don't know that would be possible though, would it?
Why?
Because if you're going to a county section to look something up, then you have to go to the county.
But under the county section, you could just say Richland Library. No,
Yeah.
you can say anything you want.
Well, how important is it to be inclusive of cities other than Columbia? I mean, you know,
That's correct.
Columbia
Right.
is the majority, I think, of Richland County as far as mass goes. So, I mean, is it something that they really wanna make sure that the people who live outside of Columbia but in Richland County feel like this is their library too? Then it goes back to whether county should be in it or not.
Not community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you said community, that's.
There are, I think 10 or 11 branches overall, and they are all currently called, Valentine Branch, Main Branch, Richland County Public Library. So that's a mouthful. So I think that they certainly wanted to be inclusive of the entire county. And those branches have their own individual name, Valentine, Eastover.
Because then, if you're talking about each branch is gonna be identified as an individual branch, like with an individual name, is that gonna play into the actual logo? In other words, will it be a version of the logo that says Trim Road Branch or Valentine?
Sure, it would probably say something like Richland Library Blythewood, or Richland Library Eastover, Richland Library Valentine.
In that case, they need to change other names so that it's not simply a street name. For example, North Main would like to be Eau Claire or North Columbia, not North Main.
There's certainly issues to overcome and consistencies to build. I'd like to get back to the color because this is something that they struggled with, the blue. Do you like blue? I felt like that you like the either medium or the dark, that the light version almost unanimously was not a favorite. Well, between the kind of medium tone, which is there, and the dark tone, some of you said it made you like this look a little bit more. At least 2 of you said that. Is there consensus at the table for that?
I like the medium because it makes the access freely stand out a little more.
Mm-hmm.
I like the reason because it shows what it is, lighter. The dark reinforces the old view of library, the inaccurate view.
I like the darker better, but I think it's because of the shape of the icon. It makes me think of the state flag, that it's that deep, deep blue. So it kind of makes it more local to me in life.
It does
It just
feel
makes a little more sense that dark, although Access Freely looks better.
a little bit
The
more of
other
that,
color.
yeah. Oh.
I didn't get the logo, and now looking at it and looking at it upside down here, I'm like, oh, it's an opening book. I can see it with the dark color, and maybe it's the gradient too that I can actually see it's like a book opening from the backside. But when I first put up on the screen, I thought it's very serious and dark and heavy, and that I liked the medium one because it was light and free and open, and that's what the library is.
Well, when I showed it to you at first, it was cold. You had no knowledge of, or may not have had any knowledge of the complete offerings of the library, or what they were trying to convey, the image that they were trying to create. And now that you've heard that, so, and we've had this discussion, how many of you like the logo less or the same at the end of the conversation than when you first saw it cold?
I like it a little better. I still did, and it's actually more looking at it and seeing it in different angles that I can see more of what the idea, okay, it's a book or it's a computer, but it's almost like it's off kilter.
Yeah, have y'all thought about flipping the actual icon? Because if you're looking at it upside down, yeah, if it's flipped, a book doesn't open like that. You know, I mean, exactly.
We need that upside down, it's great.
Yeah,
Ah,
so if
we've
you
had
hold,
a-
see, if you hold it upside down, it actually looks
Yeah,
like the book.
It makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't like it anymore. I mean, it's okay. You're asking my opinion. I just don't, I don't think you should have to like explain to somebody what your logo is. Like, I don't, like, no one's gonna sit down for an hour in a focus group and say, well, I
Thank you.
get it.
And-
You know, I mean, so I think that like, you know, it's the first blush opinion of everybody was like, you know, and so that we've talked through it more, I feel better about it, but, I mean, you know, I don't know if you go on that or if you go on the first gut reaction that everyone's like,
Well,
what's that?
I mean, that's how the whole world sees it. They get a first glimpse of it, and then they kind of see it used. They see it in some signs, and they see it on a sticker. They see it in a magazine or online. So you do become accustomed and get to see the uses of it. So it's both useful. There is that first blush, because certainly that's the big ooh that you hear in the beginning, but also as you see it every day throughout the library and the library materials.
Well, let me ask a question about that. When is it important? If I'm already committed to the library, using it, know the stuff about it, the logo doesn't matter to me. I may like it, I may not like it, but it's not gonna affect the way I use the library. If I am looking at it either from the point of view of somebody who is using the library in a very limited way, whatever limited means, whether it's on the book side or whether it's on the on the electronic media side, or if I'm a person who may sometime in the past have felt excluded, then the logo matters, because it may make me want to take a fresh look. I'm with this, with Jen, it doesn't make any sense to me that you want a logo that you have to talk about for 30 minutes before you understand it.
opposite of that I feel, but I think if it was upside down, I think it's kinda neat, because at first you'd be like, oh, it's this square thing, and you go to the library, and then you go again, and you'd stare at it, and you'd be like, what's it supposed to be? And then you go again, and you'd be like, oh, it's a book, and then, like, if you're like me, I'd go and tell my friends, did you know it's supposed to be a book, it's cool, and you sit and talk about it. So I've done that with other logos, so did you know that this is supposed to be like this, and talk about it, so if that's what you're going for, then I think that logo might accomplish it with maybe some tweaks and make it look a little bit more like what you're supposed to make it look like, but.
It almost
I think
seems like
that's-
they're wanting to get away from books to a degree,
Yeah.
like paper bound traditional books, so.
I mean, if that logo is represented with no type around it,
Mhm.
it looks like a square and a triangle.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it doesn't look remotely like it represents anything.
So you would really have to be educated, there'd be some promotion, and you need to see demonstrated use.
I think even if it was like a 45-degree angle, like towards the left, maybe even visually, you can either think of a book or a laptop.
Yeah, I mean, there's
I think the
lots of
concept of the
opportunities.
logo is good.
There's lots of opportunities to be clever with the way that a book looks. You know what I mean? Like, and it's kind of like, to me, it's so simplistic, it doesn't look like a book anymore. Even to the sense that the more you look at it, I don't have any perfectly square books. You know what I mean? Like, at that point, it looks, oh, well, is it more of a laptop then? You know, I mean, then it looks more like a computer on its side, but nobody I know puts their computer on the side open. You know, I mean, it's just. That's because you've never seen a laptop oriented like that.
So I think I heard someone say earlier, it's trying to be too clever at this angle, to be too many things, that you can see those items as you watched it pass around the table and upside down and flipped.
I mean, to me, the only part, it was funny because it was when you had it and it was upside down, that's the only part I was like, oh, okay, I can see where it's a book, because then it looks like a book that's sitting open.
Yeah.
You
But
know?
I'm also sitting at the angle where I see the triangle of your computer.
Right.
And then that, but that is that's a normal angle that you would see it as opposed to, I don't know.
It's a little
weird
too
angle.
abstract, I feel like.
I think I really like the concept of the logo, like at first glance, it's just some shape. And then as you look at it more, the shape turns into what you think it should be, a laptop or a computer, all the ways that you can access things from the library. But I think if you just tweaked it a little bit, then it could be, people could get it more without having to talk about it too much.
I think it would help me, even like he was saying about the perfectly square thing, even if it were just a little taller, that would be more book
Bookish.
shaped and more
Yeah.
laptop shaped,
More
cause the laptop
rectangular
is,
And more
you know, more
Kindle shaped
rectangular
and more
than
tablet shaped.
square, yeah, everything is not really that square.
It's more
Taller.
taller, rectangular.
Is that why it's lending itself to the talk bubble?
I think
shape?
that's it.
Yeah.
Cause, I mean, I'm seeing the two contrasts from that right there, and then I see it more as a tall rectangle, it looks, actually flip the other way.
I like it upside down.
That's what I thought. Because
It's more
there's,
like Kindle to me when it's.
see, when it's upside down, the negative space
Oh, yeah.
in between
Yeah.
the triangle
Yeah.
actually looks like paper.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
I like it that,
I
cause
see.
it's like the shadow of a Kindle or something.
Exactly,
Yeah.
as that, it looks like
Cool.
a book
Or the
or
shadow
a
of a book.
laptop.
Or like an iPad stand,
Exactly.
or, I mean,
But
I
the
see a
book
lot
is
more
opened
different
the wrong way.
If it
it's
was
a book, it's
longer.
opened the wrong way.
Mhm.
Well, it's away from you. You know, if you turned it, and there's nothing you have, you could do it, but if you turned it some kind of the other way, if you could take that and just flip it around, not turn it over,
So that the open part is
So it's
facing
facing
you.
you like
then it
Yes.
could be either a laptop or a book. Or possibly some other kind of stuff.
The L for library.
But the L is kinda neat.
And in that shape, I see it more as like a book standing upright with the shadow behind it, almost like the book's really prominent.
That's how I see it, or like a Kindle with the stand, because
Yeah.
they have, or the, they have the
Kindle and
stands to it.
iPad, yeah.
I really
Yeah.
think they're trying to move away from paper.
And that's
Well,
good.
I think they have over 1 million books, so they've
No, I know
certainly
they
got a
have
lot of
them, but
paper,
I-
yeah.
Or that looks more like a laptop from behind
Yeah.
with the keyboard.
Mhm. Yeah.
I don't see the L though. I see the L.
The negative space.
Oh, I
is
see.
a white.
Interesting.
Well,
But I
they-
still think it has it's still something we're all talking about. I think we just see it more, or we see different things in that shape than in that shape. Cause I keep getting distracted by, why isn't an IM bubble?
Yeah.
And I'm saying pencil.
To me, it looks like a great place for graffiti.
Ah. Well, it could be, I mean, it could be a space that you could do something with.
That could be a very bad thing.
They have lots of programs, maybe graffiti.
You know, this is the first time I have seen that shape as a book. After all of this, now I think I can see it as a
And
book.
now you love it.
No, if it took me 52 minutes, no.
Is there anything that you would like to see again and comment again? Any of the typography?
I still really like that font.
Really like this one?
If that looked even more like a typewriter font, like I know what it's supposed to look like, but if it had a little more of a jagged nature to it, like it had actually been typed, I
Uh-huh.
think that would be kind of neat too.
I do agree library needs to be a touch bigger,
Yeah.
like not giant, but
Yeah.
Yeah, you can play around
I
with
like this
spacing.
font, but I think that Richland Library should just be bigger, like wider than access freely. It just looks better in the other ones.
But is the
But I like
focus,
that font so much.
is the focus to get it to be thought of as Richland Library versus Richland County Public Library, or is the focus to access free?
Well, I think, that it's trying to be succinct and adopting what most people or many people call it, which is the library. It's the library, it's where we grew up and where we go for entertainment and inspiration. So I think that's a move, in many industries to kind of shorten and abbreviate those names and to become more precise in their visual communications and in how people refer to them.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's actually said it, but I do like the tack. I mean, access freely, the words themselves. I mean, I think it's a good succinct summarization of what they're trying to do.
Any final comments?
Is there a way later that if we had suggestions to see it another way, like with this type, but with Richland Library wider, that we could see that at some point, or?
We may call another focus group. We're kind of in the middle of the process right
Okay.
now, so. Well, I appreciate your input and open and frank comments today because we can't get to the end unless we get some feedback and all of you have been extremely helpful today and as you saw on the paper, this is confidential. You may see this, you may not see this in the future. So if you would just kind of keep that in this room, that's why we asked you to sign the confidentiality. And I will leave my business card. I'm gonna grab it from my purse and should anybody want it. I think Steve helped organize this group here, so if you have any comments that you think of after this, feel free to email Steve or me, and we so much appreciate your help today. Thanks very much.